So in the first section, I showed you how to implement some Bootstrap and get it up and running in your project, as well as to do some styling using JavaScript, which is really cool. Now let's go ahead and get three total ingredients components on our screen. What I want to show you is reusability, and that's the power of React, okay? You need to learn how to reuse things. Lots of people don't talk about this. They just show you X, Y, and Z, but we need to figure out how we can take components and reuse them across multiple projects. And let's go ahead and talk about that now. So here in our code, this is our main.jsx. We've got our one list. Now, what if we want three lists here? Well, that can be as simple as doing something like so. Just copying and pasting. And we can just change the title of these things. So we can change the title of this one, let's say to do, and the title of this one to a Christmas list. And get element by ID. I haven't created the HTML elements yet, but let's go ahead and pretend that they exist. I'll call this one to do and this one Christmas. I'm going to save that and go to index.html. And so we've got this ingredients div right here. Let's go ahead and add the other one. So div ID equals to do, and actually let's end that div here, and div ID equals Christmas, and end that div here as well. And just for fun, to make it look nice, let's go ahead and move that over there. So we got our three divs here, and let's go ahead and refresh the page. And there you can see three of them, which is really cool. That easy. So we just, in essence, reused the same component and we gave it a different title, which is pretty awesome. Now, we can probably do some more things to better customize these things, which you probably should. As you're building components, start thinking into the future. How can I reuse these things for future projects and applications? Remember, keep it as abstract as possible. So let's say on the Christmas one, let's say that we wanted this background here to be red. Well, I think we should give our component the ability to have a different header color, which is pretty awesome. So let's do a little cleanup first. In Bootstrap, all of your columns should always be in a row, and you should always have a container to store your main application in. So I'm just going to do some Bootstrap cleanup here. I'm going to say div class equals container, and I'll put a closing div here at the bottom, if I can type. All right, and I'll go ahead and indent. Oh, this indentation's fighting me. Okay, there we go. And inside a container, you should always start off with a row. And since our components start off with a column, a row makes sense here. So div class equals row. Now the row might not be necessary here, but I found that Bootstrap has problems and inconsistencies when you don't do a row. If you just have columns without the row. I'm going to save this and refresh the page just to make sure it's all working, and it is. Notice how it came in a little bit. Containers keep everything centralized in the page, which is really nice. And that looks good. Now let's go ahead and go back to listmanager.jsx, and again, we want to change the color, or give the user or the developer the ability to change the color of the component you're using. And then you could give away this to employees, to coworkers, whoever. You could say, hey, here's my cool to-do list component, have at it, and they can customize things, which is awesome. So let's look at what we got here. We know that this is a panel heading, as you can see right here. That's what defines the color on that. So we want to change the color of that. So how would we do that? Well, just some good old-fashioned plain Jane JavaScript. And I'm going to say var, we'll call this, what do we want to call this? We'll call this panel, let's just call this heading. Yeah, heading style. There we go. All right. And we can leave that blank for right now. If there's nothing, we don't need to do anything with it. So we can now say if this dot props dot, let's call this heading color. So what we're saying is, hey, if this exists, if a user passed in the heading color, let's go ahead and do something. And the thing that we want to do is assign the style. So we can say heading style. Make this bigger for you here. Heading style equals this dot props, heading style dot background color. That's the CSS property right here, background color. It's going to go into this object right here, okay? Heading style dot background color equals this dot props dot heading color. And then down here in our div class name equals panel heading, we can say div style equals, and we can say heading style. So what's going to happen is if someone does not pass in a property called heading color, okay, this is never going to be called, and this is going to be empty here. So we're adding an empty style, which is perfect. Now we don't need to do anything. However, if there is a heading color, okay, we're going to store it into the background color, the CSS property called background color right here in our heading style, and then that's going to be applied. So let's take a look here. Let's go into our main.jsx, and here in the Christmas one, we can set the property right there that we just defined, which was heading color, I believe. I already forgot. Heading color, right? Yes. You're like, this guy's an idiot. He can't even remember something he wrote 5 seconds ago. Heading color, and you can define how you want to do it. I'm just going to put a hex value in here, and let's find a good color. One color I kind of like is that YouTube color, YouTube red hex. And oh, look, they have a color specification, just what we need. And there we go. Well, which one looks more Christmassy? Let's do the darker one. And then we'll just pass it in right there. So it's just a string. Okay, I want you to keep in mind the operation that we're doing here. We're just passing in a property just like we did before with title, okay? Except this is, a string, and it's a hex string, but it's still a string. And then over here in our list manager, we're saying, hey, if this property exists, so if a user passed it in, just put it in this styling object, okay? This is the CSS property that we're storing the value in. So that hex value is going into this. So in CSS, it might look like this. It might look like background dash color, where you put the, the hex value in here, whatever it is, okay? That's what we're technically doing here, okay? So we're assigning that color that we just passed down in there if it exists. And then down here on this heading style, we pass that style dynamically in here. And that's awesome because it's all in our code. And let's go ahead and refresh the page. And it didn't work. Oh, no. Hold on. Hold the phone here. Hold the phone. We'll figure it out. You know what I think the problem is that the Bootstrap panel heading, it doesn't use the background color property. It uses the background property, which overrides the background color property. So let's try that out. I just changed heading style.background. So I changed the CSS property to background. Let's save it and refresh. There it is. Okay, so really cool, right? So what we did was to refresh, or to recap here, is we created our component and then we passed in the value that we wanted. Now imagine that you're handing off your code, your list manager.jsx, okay? So you grab this file and you grab your list item and your list file. So you grab these 3 files and maybe you store it on GitHub somewhere and you say, hey, anytime I want to list, I can just grab this file, you pull it down, download it, install it in your project just like we have here, and then you use it just like this, and you can pass in different values and colors into it. Completely reusable. By the way, I've done this in Angular before. A lot more work to get this type of effort and Angular directives than you get right here. So this is really awesome. And so it's looking good. Now, we could, of course, customize the blue line around the box if we wanted to, or do all kinds of different things. But it's looking really cool. So for the Christmas list, we can put, trains. What else are we giving for Christmas? A wreath. I think that's how you spell it, with an E maybe. And then your to-do list, of course, is going to be egg, neighbor's house. And we got to do that. And the ingredients, we need the eggs so we can egg the neighbor's house. So I'm just showing you. Now we've got a few different things here that are happening on the screen. We only had to write the code once, which is pretty cool. Now there's some formatting issues here with these bullet points. Let's go ahead and take care of those real quick. It's not completely pretty, and I don't like the fact that this is so close to the top here. So let's figure that out now. List manager.jsx, and here's the problem. So we've got this panel body, and we're putting the list inside the body, and I don't necessarily want that there inside the body. Let's just keep it inside the main div. Let's see if that fixes it here. Get rid of that space. So let's get out of the panel body and just put it right here in the main panel. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Ingredients, eggs. There we go. Milk. It's looking good now. Okay, so very cool. Looks good to me. All right, so there you have it. We've got 3 lists that we've created using React components and made them highly reusable. We've also talked about being able to add styles here dynamically. And here's the reason why this is important. Some coders might disagree that you should do it this way, use the CSS files, etc. However, in the world of components, the more self-contained you can have something, the better. So if we have a component, a list manager, if we want it to be as self-contained as possible, we want to put the styling here as well too, so it's easily redistributable. So you don't have to, okay? But the more styling you can do right here in your code, apply it to your component, and then the more options you give, such as in main.jsx here, how we pass in values, the more options that you give a user, the more reusable it becomes, and that is pretty dang cool because you can use it on multiple projects, multiple colors, however you want it. So very powerful. I highly recommend that you do some of your styling here for your components to make them self-contained and have less dependencies. You don't have to distribute a CSS file with it or anything like that. Although in our case, we are using Bootstrap, so that's part of a requirement. However, anyway, cool stuff, right? We are trucking along here, making amazing things, and let's go ahead and move forward. And remember, to get your free live help, go to devslopes.com and click on chat room. I'm there all the time, as well as a huge community of other students.